Hello and happy Monday. Welcome to the Undercovers podcast. I'm Ben along with Paul. Connor is out tonight, but he'll be back next week and he'll have some great analysis from training camp because he's been to two practices
Yeah,
so far. I mean, I've been to one, so I'll definitely give my thoughts, but we are 1 week into training camp. We have our first real football game of the season on Thursday, the Hall of Fame game. I get it; it's just preseason, but it is
it's
something.
football.
So we are getting we're getting closer, and then the Bills' first preseason game uh, is a week from this Saturday, I believe.
Yep,
Right, so we're getting
August
closer
10th.
to that. We had our first padded practice today, so things are really picking up steam. So a lot to talk about. So let's get started.
Definitely, let's get started. A jam-packed show for you tonight. Training camp. I mean, there's news everywhere. It's good to be back in the full football swing when you can just nosedive in 8 hours of screen time every day and just find the latest of NFL content. But we'll start with some quick takes here. Obviously, Connor's not
Yeah.
here, so we'll split on quick takes. But we're gonna start with your quick take tonight. And it's going to be, did the Packers rush to sign Jordan Love?
Um. So for this one, it's tough because honestly, I probably would have the same answer for both topics, but I think for Jordan Love, the Packers are kind of just giving themselves the benefit of the doubt. Like, they haven't missed yet since Favre, so Love has shown the potential, and a lot of people say it's just half a season of sample size. Yes, he definitely probably just given his sample size probably has, and obviously he is the biggest paid quarterback of all time, so it works I guess in both regards. But I mean, just given for what he did, that probably one of the smallest sample sizes to get that big of a contract. But I mean, I think he proved that he can be a franchise quarterback, and I mean, they don't really have a choice. And I think the alternative is, you have to draft someone, but you have to really be in that position. And I mean, I just think it's look at what Trevor Lawrence was paid, look at what Burrow's paid. I mean, look at Tua's paid. I mean, that's just kind of a reflection of how the market is now. Daniel Jones is way overpaid, but I would say Jordan Love for about 15 million more a year is still fair compared to what Daniel Jones is making. Now the fact that he's paid more than Allen and Mahomes is an entirely different conversation, but I mean that's really just kind of it was his turn, and Mahomes and Allen had already had their initial contract. But I mean, we both know, and most people probably as well know, that Allen and Mahomes contracts will most likely get adjusted within the near future as well, especially as the salary cap keeps going up. But I think they rushed a little bit, but I still probably would have signed Love just because this is the last year, if I'm not mistaken, because they didn't pick up his fifth year option and they only signed up for 1 year. So it's just the franchise tag is a mess. And then, he doesn't really have to have the whole weight of the contract situation on him, just weighing on him and the team all season. So, Green Bay, for LaFleur, he doesn't have to worry about it. They're on the same page. Neither does Love. They can just really go out there and ball, and hopefully they can be the team some people think they can be. I mean, I know some people are picking them to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm there yet. I might have to see it, but I mean, they should be a contender. But let's move on to our next quick take.
Yeah, let's move on to the next quick take really quick. I'm just going to point out that I didn't realize that he was probably on his last year of his contract before thinking about this, because initially I was thinking it felt rushed, but if this was his last year under a deal, then I understand why you would pay him.
Right.
So that's where I would agree there. So another quarterback also got paid within the same day, just a few hours beforehand, is
Yep.
Tua. Do you feel that Tua is overpaid, or do you think this is just right? I mean, non-Bills bias here. Is he overpaid?
I mean, look, some people will say you reverse the video and put him next to Goff. He should be paid what Goff is, and I hear those arguments that I know he's put up numbers equal or to some extent better than Goff, but the difference is Goff, has won playoff games. Now I know, of course, football is ultimately a team sport, but there's been moments for Tua to step up where he hasn't. Um, I'm I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest Tua person myself. Like in my rankings, he's like the 15th or 16th best quarterback.
Mhm.
And it's not as much a knock on Tua. It's just I think there's a lot of quarterbacks right around the same area, but I just think as good as he is elite processing and pretty good and I'll say elite ball placement in short intermediate areas, but what he lacks in other areas, I would take in other quarterbacks. But when you consider what Baker Mayfield is making, I think it is a bit of an overpay because you could say that Baker has proved it on two teams now with a playoff win. And I know he signed that extension, but still looking at what Baker's getting paid compared to Tua, I would much rather be paying Baker 40 million or whatever Baker's making this year. Because actually, I in my rankings, I have Baker above Tua. I do, which might seem biased to
In
some.
some in some regards, that would be a hot take, but I don't think I necessarily disagree.
He's won two playoff games. I mean, look, outside of 2024 or 2023, and honestly, if I'm not mistaken, the Browns, I think in 2021, did they win 10 games with Baker? So
I
two,
believe so.
the best two has done is 11 wins. And I get it. Baker only won 9 games last year, but so did the Dolphins when they made the playoffs. So I think like Tua's best statistical season is probably better, but I just think from on field play and I think what you need from a quarterback, I'd rather have Baker, but it's not a knock against Tua. But I do think Tua. I think anything more than 45 million for him is a slight overpay, but I get it's the market. Like, I mean, Dolphins fans are going to say, look at the numbers. I mean, he did lead a great offense, but I think if you strip away the weapons, I don't know if he's as effective versus Josh Allen. They took away Diggs and Davis, and I mean, some of us might argue that the weapons are almost better this year than in previous years, just compared, the variety and overall number. But I mean, you see it with other quarterbacks when they strip away the weapons, they're still able to make it work and be successful. And I don't think Tua will be able to do that. I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I think it is a slight overpay. But given I mean, what was the other option? Maybe see if you can get a shot at Dak. I mean, that's what I said a couple of weeks ago. I mean, but who knows? I mean, Dallas would be almost be stupid to let Dak go because what are their options after Dak? Is it Trey Lance?
I mean, to their depth charts, probably Trey Lance, but I mean, uh,
See, the
you
problem
could
is
you would
these
have to think
teams are
that
just kind of just stuck against a wall because it's either you go for the unknown or you go back to sucking if you strike out, and they'd rather
that
just
is true.
get what they know. And Tua and even Dak, as limited as they are, they're still better than at least half the league, and they give a chance to win on more Sundays than not. Yes, they're not the Mahomes or Allen, but I mean, there's only a couple of those guys in the world, so
True.
sometimes you may as well just take what you got. But what's our next take?
The the quarterback market's always interesting. It's going to continue to go up. I mean, if you're a team, like, do you try to convince the quarterback to take less on the market so you can continue to build around? Because there's going to be a certain point where just your entire team is your quarterback, and it's really going to be really, really hard to build around an elite quarterback. I mean, just look after the next few contracts of Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy, who would probably be making market money. I mean, there's C.J. Stroud and there's Anthony Richardson. I mean, you look at the team that Houston has now, they're not going to have that same caliber of team that they have now with the rookie CJ Stroud. And then with the CJ Stroud, that's going to be making probably what double of today of right now's market.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's going to be interesting to see how teams do it. I mean, some teams, I mean, you look at Green Bay, even the Bills to an extent are kind of just going with the no huge contracts for the wide receivers, and then they'll pay maybe a running back or a tight end, and then your offensive line and quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see how the roster construction goes. I mean, I kind of have a feeling that the teams with the upper end quarterbacks aren't going to be shelling out a ton of money to wide receivers just because it seems every year you can find at least serviceable wide receivers either through free agency or draft. So why spend 30 million on one player when that can go to two or three players? I think it really will just go up to which GM is best able to figure out what positions are really worth investing in and what ones you can get by, with some rookies or, cheap labor through, street free agents.
Free agency in the draft has now become the new norm of importance around the NFL, with the
Mm-hmm.
quarterback market just continuing to double, continue to go to a different level. This trivia question that I have laid out today was also to test Connor's mind, but Connor's not here, so I'll test your mind.
Okay.
And so, who are the four Bills players who played in the FCS? So they played with FCS programs. The Bills have
Uh,
four of them.
on the current roster,
Yes, currently.
okay. Let me think. Now, is this counting transfers or no?
No. So this is
Okay.
like where
Where
where they came out of college from.
where they came out of college from? Okay. Let me let me think.
Three of them are starters.
Okay, three of them are starters. So, um, I f- oh, Teron Johnson is one, isn't he?
Yep. Yes, he
Yep,
is.
yep. Okay.
So there's one off the
Weber
board.
State, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let me think. So I can kind of probably just go across the board. So if you go that's easy now. If you go defensive backs, because Christian Benford went to Villanova, so he's
He
another
did.
one.
So there's two out
Uh,
of the four.
so is the other starter on offense or defense?
Offense.
Offense. Okay, let me think. Mm, you would think it would probably be, yeah, it's on the offensive line because Spencer Brown went to Northern Iowa, right?
He did. He did.
Okay. So now let me think: was the other player on the 53-man roster, or are they just on the 90-man roster now?
Last year?
Yeah.
Last year, this guy, he was activated to the 53 because of injury, but he was primarily a practice squad player.
Defense,
Offense.
offense. Oh,
I did
ah,
some research into this school as well, just to make sure they were on the FCS level.
yeah. I don't know. I give up.
Well, they're an FCS level school until this is their last season on the FCS level. It is UMass Andy Isabella.
Oh, okay, that's right. Andy
They're going to the
Isabella. Okay.
MAC after this season, so they still would technically qualify as a FCS school. Next year would be three if if uh if every player on the current Bills roster stays the same under the starters. Got you thinking a little bit before we head into training camp topics.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't even think of UMass. I for some reason just thought they were FCS, because probably just because they're in the college football game. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's get into some Bills talk right now.
Yeah, let's get into Bills talk because you and Connor were on the first there at the first day of training camp,
Right.
just watching. First day of training camp is obviously different than the fifth day of training camp. But I guess what
Sure.
are some of your takeaways that you took in at training camp, and then maybe some overall takeaways that you have during training camp. Give maybe two, three, then I'll give a couple.
Um, I mean, this is one. I mean, I think if you're on Bill's Twitter, you should see just some of the different, or I mean, even if you follow any podcaster or reporter, I feel like the offense and just Joe Brady's creativity and just the different play calls overall have kind of just been something that's really stood out as far as whether Curtis Samuel is in the backfield and they have, two other receivers and two tight ends in, or it's the amount of motion. And then you obviously see some interesting personnel pairings, which we can get into it a little bit, but to me, it's definitely just Joe Brady and how this offense looks pretty much the official first year of the Joe Brady era, because last year, obviously, he took over midseason and did a very good job. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Joe Brady offense officially looks like. And I think we're getting a little bit of a sneak peek in training camp, but that's definitely um, a big takeaway. And I'll give you one on the defensive side now. Damar Hamlin and Kyer Elam have both really stood out in a good way. They both have been making a lot of plays, and it just looks like they've taken that leap that you need to see from them. Gregory So looks unbelievable as well. This really might be his first career double digit sack season, and I mean, he's playing for that contract, so I mean,
He is.
it definitely would be big for both him and the Bills if he has a big season. And then back over to the offense, obviously, Keon Coleman has been a big talk of camp, but I mean, he does look really good. Josh looks unbelievable, and I mean, yes. We lost two of our top receivers last year, but it looks like the chemistry is really there. You can see that the offseason work they put in um, really paid off, and it started to pay off, and I think you'll see that during the regular season. And I just think it looks like there's just a new energy, with the team. Like everyone just looks, motivated to play, like they're playing for each other. Um, it looks like they're really just having fun out there. The vibes are really, really high right now. So it's just, something really good to see going into the season compared to last year. A training camp. Obviously, you had, day one was the whole Stephon Diggs press conference where, you know, he just had to reassure everyone he wanted to stay in Buffalo, which obviously was not true. But you can just kind of tell that the energy is up this year. Um, so it's really, really good to see. So I'm looking forward to the season, just from the first couple of days. But I mean, it's going to be nice to see um, how this team evolves as training camp keeps going, and then as we get into the preseason.
It's a refreshed, renewed vibe around this Bills team. It feels like honestly, it feels like it's the best. It feels like it's the one of the best vibes I have felt around this Bills team in a long time. I mean, you would probably have to go back to when, the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs and, probably that offseason and heading into training camp where, vibes were really high and, things felt like they were in place. And that's what it feels like this offseason. And I
Mhm.
was genuinely gratefully surprised by the how well the offense just looked in that in the first 5 days. They had some struggles, the miscommunication and with the quarterbacks and wide receivers is going to happen, but I would rather have it happen in practice, you know, kick out the kinks and cobwebs just a little bit in training camp. They're going to happen, but I'm really surprised and really thankful that, the off-season work with Joe Brady and, individual workouts that they've probably have done to the side, it's really worked out because the connection between Josh and Keon, like if this wasn't Keon's rookie season, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell this is Keon's rookie season because he's out there full on chemistry with Josh Allen. It seems like everything that Josh throws to Keon and basically to any wide receiver in this offense, they're catching it. So I feel like there's going to be limited drops this season. The chemistry is there, and I really like it. We're seeing different things with Joe Brady, and they've been throwing a lot of play action, with Josh Allen in this offense. It's all around Bill's Twitter. And I'm happy they're going back to play action because you remember Josh Allen in play action is one of the better or one of the best play action quarterbacks in the NFL. So if they can go back to that, kind of the old style offense or like the old style, but refresh it with a Brady twist, that would be really, really welcoming. And it would be really, really fun to watch this season. You know, Flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. They were a little slow, which is okay. They're not in pads until today, until today. So they were going to look slow anyways from the get go. But it seems like this defense is going to be an issue because it seems like during the one-on-one drills today, the defense was getting through. They were able to stop. They were able to get into run gaps. They were able to apply pressure to Josh Allen and get through the offense like ease. So I think the Bills heading into the season, just from the first 5 days of training camp, they look really good and they look like they're on a mission this season. The mission to get to where they haven't gone yet, which is a Super Bowl.
No, I agree 100%. Like the first couple days, the offense is always going to have the advantage before pads go on. But I mean, we have seen the defense make some plays the last couple of days without pads. Ed Oliver and Rousseau have really made their presence felt. And even today, it's a first padded practice, first of all. Second of all, you still got to realize that this is Bobby Babbitt's first time calling plays,
Mm-hmm.
so he's still kind of figuring things out. And then, of course, today you had Von Miller, Matt Milano, and Taron Johnson all out with veteran rest days, which honestly is a good thing because you
Mm-hmm.
got Daquan Hardy taking first team reps, against, run plays. So it's nice to see him get some reps. And obviously, Dorian Williams, I believe, would have filled in for Milano today.
Yeah,
Um,
he's having a great camp. I'm
and,
hearing
and
like,
exactly, and he's had a very solid camp as well. So I like what I see actually from the defense. I'm a little concerned with the safety position though. I wasn't really as much going into camp, but now
sure.
hearing that Bishop, came into camp out of shape or not ready, whatever. It's kind of unclear exactly what Coach McDermott meant because I mean he's still participating and now with Edwards out, he's getting some opportunity, but I mean Mike Edwards' hamstring could be an issue this season because I mean he was out during minicamp, and now it's holding him out of training camp. And if one of Hamlin or Rap go down, then that could be an emergency. So I mean, I really wasn't as much pro Justin Simmons recently, just because I actually liked the safety room with a healthy
Mhm.
Mike Edwards, but without a healthy Mike Edwards, I think
Yeah.
Bean might actually need to look to make a move. And running back is going to be something to keep an eye on as well because Terrell Bernard leveled Ty Johnson and he was a little gimpy after. He didn't have a brace or anything, but he had a sleeve, and I think there was still maybe a noticeable limp. I'm not going to confirm that, but I thought I saw something about that. So I mean that definitely could open a spot up for Frank Gore Jr. But I mean the Bills could be, in the veteran running back market, because Ty Johnson was a very big part of the offense, and I think they probably would like, they want Ray Davis to be good, but if he's not or he gets hurt, then it's really just James Cook and back to just running Josh Allen. I know they have Curtis Samuel who they like, but I think they like him more in that gadget role than as a
Mhm.
pure running back. So just going forward, it's going to be interesting to monitor some of those injury situations. But as we get into the first week of camp and into the second week, which players' stock are you buying and who are you selling after the first full week?
You know, I'm buying into Tyro Shaver stock.
Okay.
I think he has really shown up after last season. I was reading a little bit on Tyro Shavers, kind of like see what and would see what people are talking about, and see what Sean McDermott's talking about. It seems like Sean McDermott's really impressed with Tyro Shavers, and in the first 5 days of training camp, and it really also goes back to last season. Even though he didn't, I don't think he played a single snap for the Bills last season, the regular season, but he played in some preseason games last year. He really says he was impressed. He's been impressed with Tyro Shavers. It goes back to last season, and he's just been consistent. He's a consistent wide receiver, but Tyro Shavers brings more than just being a wide receiver. He's a really, really, really good special teamers. He had 2 blocked punts in college. Like, he blocked 2 punts, and he returned 3 blocked punts for touchdowns during his time at San Diego State. So, he can bring great at the wide receiver position, and he's continuing to show that he can go up and be consistent, and early impressions are showing off, and he's getting some quality time with the ones, but he's also showing that he can play some really good special teams, which might work in the Bills' favor this season because their special teams last year wasn't all too great. So I'm really buying into the Tyro Shavers spot, but that might say who does he go for? With Chase Claypool injured,
So
could Chase
who are you
Claypool fall?
selling now?
So who am I selling? I really didn't think about this too much, but the first thing that did come up to my mind when I was thinking about on this topic is Connor McGovern at center.
Oh,
The
yeah,
last
that
two
kind of has
last
been an issue
yeah.
um recently. So yeah, that's something that who knows, we might
Not
see
saying it's over,
Van
but for him
Pran
at center, but I
Granger
really
sooner
want to
than we
see what
expect.
Brand Granger can bring.
100%. Yep. So let me do mine.
Go for it.
Number
Interested to
one,
hear.
I mean, I actually was kind of thinking of giving a shout out to um our guy Tyrell Shavers. I'm glad you did. I've actually been saying last year, and it's now it's even more frustrating to see, you spent a draft pick on Shorter when Shavers is essentially the same
Yeah.
player but actually a better version, and he was undrafted.
Once undrafted, yeah.
And you could have gotten guys like a Trey Palmer, guys like Demario Douglas, guys like Puka Nakua, Andre Yasovius, or um, even A.T. Perry at that spot. You took Shorter in, and now it looks like Shorter is never even going to make a roster unless he really does some uphill battling the next couple weeks, which he can. But I mean, so
Mhm.
far you haven't really heard much of Justin Shorter. But I'll stick to the receiver theme, and instead of Shavers, I'll go with the Matt Collins hype. Now I've always kind of been a fan of Matt Collins, and it's not even because of just his eccentric personality. It just kind of his quirkiness. Even though
No shoe
now that
Matt.
I'm getting to know him more, he's unbelievably amazing. So I really like him for his personality too. But just as far as the on-field stuff, I would say a couple weeks ago, just based on not even just the Claypool acquisition, but you got guys like Hamler, obviously shorter shavers, and then you sign a MVS and you draft Coleman. So, I mean, it's not like I was saying he wasn't going to make the roster, but I didn't really think that Hollins was really going to be a serious offensive piece. But just, based off the training camp reports, and obviously it could change as weeks go on, but right now it looks like he's going to get significant snaps in the wide receiver room. And honestly, MVS, on the other hand, has some work to do, especially with Hamler looking to be one of the number one returners. Um, so I am buying into the Matt Collins stock. I think he can get maybe 400 to 500 yards and, have some decent plays, but that's something, if you were to tell me a month ago I would be saying that, I would have said you're crazy, but right now I am buying that and then selling. Yeah, now this is an interesting one as well.
Because there
I
hasn't been like
still
too much negative out of training
Yeah,
camp, so that's
there
why it's kind
really
of
there
hard to
hasn't
find.
been, but I'll just go with something. Just because we haven't heard something doesn't mean it's not a,
True.
it's still not a weakness. I'll go with Taylor Rapp. I still am not really buying him as the long-term solution or the full year starter at safety. I think he's a good third safety and can make plays here or there, but I still think he's too much of a liability personally. So I don't necessarily trust him as the starter. So right now, I'll say if I had to sell anyone, it would be Taylor Rapp as a starting safety.
Is it something that maybe you saw during at training camp that you might have like,
I mean, he
well,
actually
I don't know
apparently
about Taylor
seems
Rapp. There goes Ben. So we were just talking about buying and selling here on the undercovers here. We'll wait for Ben to come back. He was talking about, the uncertainty of Taylor Rapp at the safety position, which I'm not necessarily going to disagree on. Taylor Rapp Taylor Rapp definitely has some things to show because he only had limited snaps last season for the Buffalo Bills at the starting position. So I think that Taylor Rapp is somebody, and there's Ben.
Start up.
Something happened.
Yep. I accidentally clicked. I mean, I've heard he slimmed down, is in better shape. I'm just a skeptic, and until I see him really play good for a long stretch of games, I don't necessarily buy the hype. But I mean, we'll see.
I mean, I don't. I was just saying just to fill some airtime. I was talking about with exactly what you were saying, the limited snaps. So, like we haven't seen enough of Taylor Rapp at the starting safety for the Buffalo Bills, which that's why Cole Bishop was an honorable mention for me to buy a stock, was because it seems I'm not too clear on what the coaches are saying. I don't know if I'm too clear on Cole Bishop and what he's saying. What they're saying with Cole Bishop, is he out of shape? Did he not come into camp well? Or is he going to get it? Or is he going to get a starting role on this team? So Cole Bishop definitely to me seems like Cole Bishop seems like he's one step ahead on some of these other safeties because you look at some of the tweets or the reports out of camp with Cole Bishop. It seems like he's one step ahead. His speed is there. He's jumping on balls,
Mm,
and he seems like he's really good in coverage. So I'm just a little confused in what the coaches are saying, but I really
I
feel
don't
like
know if
Cole
I've
Bishop
heard
is it.
that necessarily. I mean, I think he's got potential, but yeah, I mean, I think what I heard is he wasn't in shape, but I mean, he's getting reps because of Edwards' injuries, and he is performing. I guess we'll just have to see with Bishop. But Hamlin's definitely a threat to start at safety. That's a legit story. Just as we wrap up our Bills talk today, who are you looking out for as week 2 is about to start?
With week 2 of training camp, you know, I'm going to keep my eye on. I'm going to keep my eye on the running back room.
Okay.
Running back room as a whole. Maybe if I'm going to point out one player, Ray Davis. It seems like his
He's had a
stock
strong
as a
camp so far. Yep.
Yes. It seems like his stock as a rookie running back so far is just continuing to go up, and it's only going to continue to go up from here. His shiftiness, his speed, his ability to hit the gap. I think he's going to bring a new life to the Bills running back room behind James Cook. I mean, if James Cook doesn't have maybe has some issues during the season, we could maybe be talking midseason Ray Davis getting some starting snaps at running back because he seems that good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see Davis as well. It's just this rookie class as a whole seems like, I mean, outside of really Grable who struggled, it seems like everyone or most of them are living up to the billing and performing well. And it's funny. I'm sticking with the rookie class as well. I'm interested to seeing Dwayne Carter more
Hmm.
as we go forward. I think he really has a big chance to make a huge impact year one as a D tackle in this rotation. And I'm excited to see him in the preseason as well as every other rookie, of course. But it's gonna be fun. As we continue. And next week we should have a Bills guest, so we will definitely announce that. But other than that, as we wrap up tonight, the only other real NFL news, well, I guess outside of Danico Autry being suspended the first 6 games due to substance abuse, and that will um, affect the when the Bills play the Texans because the Bills play the Texans week 5. Colts edge rusher Samson Abukum tore his Achilles, which is very, very unfortunate because he is a
Unfortunate.
very good pass rusher and had 9.5 sacks on their rotation last year. Of course, they drafted Latu this year. So it's not like they don't have any pass rushers, but I mean that just hurts the depth, and you hate to lose a guy, especially before preseason even starts. Um, so that just really sucks. So hopefully, I mean, there's been a couple other injuries too. So Sam Williams, I believe, tore his ACL, and then we had a couple corners go down. So I just hope that's really the end of it. As far as, I mean, obviously it's football. When the season starts, you can't prevent any injuries, but I mean, you hate to see it right before the season even starts.
Absolutely. You don't want to see any of these injuries. I mean, there's another one. I mean, the Colt, not the Colt, the Lions kicker tore. I think he tore his
Oh, good
hamstring.
call. Yep, Michael
But
Badger.
I mean,
Yep,
they have a pretty good backup behind him, and Jake Bates,
sure.
who
I'm a
kicked
big
field
Jake Bates
goals
fan.
for Michigan at the UFL, and he did pretty. I mean, if you watch any of Jake Bates' tape, I mean, he did pretty well with the Michigan Panthers. Kicking at Ford Field, but the Nico Autry suspension, it makes me interested to see what the NFL is going to do with Rishi Rice. Are they going to suspend him, or are they just going to let what he did, the reckless driving, you know, in the off season, are they just going to let that slide? It would be interesting to see what the NFL does with that coming out of with the all tree suspension. But big blow to the Texans. Bills won't see them week 5. That would be something more to talk about as we get get closer to week 5. See where the Bills are at. If see what a all tree suspension does to a Texans defense, and
For sure, it will be
does it really
interesting.
impact them at the beginning of the season? Because look at it, Bills' first 6 games are really really tough. And if the Bills can escape 4-2, that'd be great. But 5-1, that would be awesome to go into the next quarter of the season.
Sure. I mean, I'll just start. I'll sign up for 4-2 even, but let's just get to week 1 first and start off from there. Hopefully, go to 1-0 and then 2-0. Down in Miami week 2. But that will do it for tonight's episode. Make sure to Follow us on all audio platforms, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on X or Twitter or whatever you call it now. Next week again, we'll have a guest to talk some Bills, and Connor will be back. Of course, to give his
Slacking.
thoughts on Bills camp. So, other than that, that should do it for tonight. Have a good night, everyone, and go Bills.
Go Bills.